I still remember the sound. Not the bell over the cafe door, not the hum of the espresso machine, not even the chatter of the morning crowd. No, what I remember, what wakes me up some nights even now, is the sound of my daughter's breath shaking. A soft, trembling sound like she was trying not to cry or trying not to scream. I walked in that morning expecting to order a cup of coffee like any other father visiting his child's new business. The windows were fogged from the cold, and when I pushed the door open, the warm air inside rushed against my face, thick with the smell of burnt milk, old pastries, and something sour lurking in the corners. But then I saw her, my daughter, my only girl, my Delilah. She was on her knees on the cold tile floor, the sleeves of her shirt soaked through, her fingers red and swollen as she scrubbed dried milk stains with a tiny broken toothbrush. A toothbrush. That's what they gave her to clean the whole shop with. At first, my mind tried to make sense of it, maybe a spill. Maybe the mop broke. Maybe, but no. Her shoulders were trembling too hard for it to be something simple. Then I heard the voice behind her. Sharp, cold, full of false sweetness. You missed a spot. Owners don't get breaks. Her mother-in-law. That woman stood there with her arms folded like some queen inspecting a servant. Not helping, not working, not lifting a finger, just watching, judging, commanding. She didn't see me at first. Nobody did. I froze in the doorway, one hand still on the handle, my heart punching the inside of my chest. I looked at my daughter's face, her hair stuck to her cheeks, her eyes staring at the grout line like she was counting her breaths just to stay standing. And then she looked up. A small smile fought its way onto her lips. Not a happy smile, no. A smile built from habit, from fear, from desperation. "Dad, hey," she whispered. My throat closed up. I stepped forward. Slow, steady, controlled, because if I let myself move too fast, I wouldn't stop. I'd pull her off that floor, drag her out of that place, and toss the whole damn building into the street. "Morning, sweetheart," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. The mother-in-law turned then, a little too quickly, surprise flashing across her face before she pasted on that sugary fake smile she uses in front of customers. "Oh, hello, Mr. Hale. Wonderful to see you. Delilah's just doing some deep cleaning," my daughter whispered without looking up. Her voice cracked on the word deep. I swallowed a storm. Every bone in my body told me to break something, but I'm 78. I've learned that the most dangerous man in any room is the one who stays calm. So I said, "Don't let me interrupt. I'll just get a coffee." The mother-in-law perked up at that, all fake warmth and painted charm. She went behind the counter my daughter paid for, and started preparing my drink like nothing was wrong. While she did, I walked past my girl. Her hand brushed the floor, slow, tired, almost defeated. "Sweetheart," I murmured, crouching just enough so only she could hear me, "blink twice if you need to leave with me right now." She didn't blink. She didn't look at me. Instead, a tear hit the floor, and she scrubbed harder. Something inside me cracked, something old, something I thought had died years ago. I stood up, took my coffee, sipped it even though it tasted like burnt rubber, and then I walked out. Not because I was giving up, not because I was scared, but because I needed to stay smart. Not angry, not loud, not reckless. Smart. The cold morning air hit me like a slap. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at my reflection in the window, just an old man, hunched slightly, tired, shaking, but with eyes filled with fire. Behind the glass, the mother-in-law strutted around like she owned the place. Customers walked in and out, and my daughter kept scrubbing, quieter and smaller than I'd ever seen her. I went home. My apartment smelled like old books and cedar, the scent I've lived with for decades. I closed the door softly behind me and set the coffee on the kitchen table. Then I exhaled, slowly, the way men do when they're trying to stop themselves from exploding. I sat down, hands clasped, staring at nothing. I thought of all the years I protected her, held her when she was sick, taught her how to ride a bike, how to fix a leaky faucet, how to know when someone is lying. And I thought, how could she end up here? How could she end up with them? After a long while, I stood up and went to the drawer where I keep my old inspection files, from the decades when I worked as a regulatory inspector, before my hands got shaky. Old habits don't die. They wait. I grabbed my glasses, sat down at the table, and sorted through documents until I found the manila folder my daughter gave me months ago when the cafe opened. "Just hold on to these in case I lose something," she'd said. I opened it now and my heart dropped. Inside were partnership papers, legal ones, thick, stamped, notarized. At the top, ownership transfer agreement. And there it was, clear as day. 60% ownership. Mother-in-law 40% ownership. Delilah, my daughter, had signed away her own cafe. Except the signature, the date, the witness line, they didn't match. And the way the ink trailed, the shake, the slope, I'd seen that kind of thing before. Because in my old job, I used to flag forged documents. I set the papers down. My hands were shaking so hard the table rattled. For a long time, I just sat there, eyes burning, jaw clenched, listening to the soft tick of the clock on the wall. Then I whispered, to no one and yet to everyone, "I'm going to burn them for this." My voice didn't sound old then. It sounded like a storm. But the worst part wasn't the forged papers, not even close, because tucked behind them, folded so small it looked like trash, was a note in my daughter's handwriting. A note so heartbreaking, so desperate, that when I read it, my knees nearly gave out. And that note changed everything. I didn't touch the note at first. My hands hovered above it, shaking the way old hands do when they're not sure if they're ready for the truth. It was folded into a tight, tiny square, the kind someone folds when their heart is breaking and they don't want anyone to see. The paper was soft from being held too often, corners wrinkled, edges smudged. My daughter had cried on this. I could feel it. For a long moment, I just stared at it on my kitchen table next to the forged ownership papers that already had my blood boiling. Finally, I unfolded it. One line, just one, written in my daughter's tired handwriting. "Dad, please don't come by the cafe anymore. I don't want you to see what they're doing to me." I swear the air left my lungs. It felt like someone reached inside my chest and squeezed, slow, steady, merciless. I sank into the chair. The room tilted. My eyes burned. My daughter, the girl who used to run into my arms after school, the one who believed I could fix anything, the one who thought I was the strongest man in the world, she didn't want me to see her like that. She hid her suffering because she didn't want to shame me, because somehow she thought she was the embarrassment. I pressed the note to my forehead and closed my eyes. "Sweetheart," I whispered, my voice cracking, "you think hiding this is protecting me, but all you've done is wake up every ghost I tried to bury." There is a particular kind of anger that only fathers feel, the kind that mixes with heartbreak until it becomes something sharp, focused, cold. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. I spread the forged papers out across the table like a crime scene. The cheap legal language, the uneven signature, the way the ink trailed like someone copying a name too slowly. And suddenly it clicked. The date on the document. It was signed on a day my daughter had been with me, the day she visited for dinner. I remembered it clearly because she burned the rice and laughed until she snorted. She couldn't have signed anything that day. I looked closer. The witness signature. It belonged to her mother-in-law's friend, someone who hated my daughter from the beginning, always calling her too soft. The mother-in-law orchestrated the whole thing. My jaw clenched so hard I heard something pop. I stood up, walked to the kitchen sink, and splashed cold water on my face. The water ran through my fingers, over my wrists, down my arms. I stared at my reflection in the window above the sink. A tired old man, bags under his eyes, hair more silver than gray, lines carved from years of holding in anger and swallowing pride. But behind that tired exterior were eyes that had seen much worse and survived. "I warned you," I murmured to the empty apartment. "I warned all of them. I may be old, but I didn't forget how to fight." I dried my hands and took a slow walk around the apartment. My knees creaked, my back protested, but my mind was waking up in ways I hadn't felt in decades. See, before retirement, I wasn't just any inspector. I was the guy they called when a case needed someone who wouldn't be bribed, scared, or fooled. Before my hands shook, before my voice softened, I was the one who shut down restaurants, clinics, offices, not out of cruelty, but because I believed in fairness and safety. I knew how to spot rot in wood, mold behind paint, lies behind smiles. And now all that training, all those instincts, they were crawling back. Slowly, purposefully, like wolves sniffing out a trail. I went to the drawer where I kept my old toolkit, not the wrenches or screwdrivers, but the tools of a man who collected evidence. A small camera, a battered notebook, a measuring stick, a pen light, a thermometer. Tools I hadn't touched in years. I held the thermometer like it was an old friend. "Still works," I muttered. Then I opened my notebook, the one I carried on every inspection for 30 years. The pages were yellowing, the ink fading, but the structure was the same. Dates, times, observations, violations, names. My handwriting back then was clean and sharp. Now it shook, but it would do. I wrote one thing on the first page: Café investigation for Delilah objective, protect, restore, expose. Then I underlined it twice. A knock on my door pulled me back to the moment. It was my neighbor, old Mrs. Kent, balancing a glass jar of her homemade soup and that knowing look she always had. "Thought you might need dinner," she said. I thanked her, but she narrowed her eyes at me. "You look like you're planning something." "I am," I said. She paused, then nodded. "Good, it's about time somebody did." After she left, I sat back down and breathed deep. I didn't rush, didn't storm the cafe, didn't call anyone. That's what the mother-in-law expected, an old man with a temper. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. No, I was going to do this slowly, quietly, legally, perfectly. The kind of justice that doesn't make noise until it's too late for the guilty to run. As I organized the forged documents, the note, and my tools into neat stacks, a strange calm washed over me. A cold calm. The kind I only felt twice in my life. Once when I lost my wife, and once during an investigation that nearly cost me my job. Funny how grief and purpose feel so similar in your bones. By midnight, I had a plan. A meticulous one, a patient one. A plan built not from anger but from precision. I sat back, rubbed my aching knees, and whispered, "Tomorrow, sweetheart, we start getting your life back." The clock ticked quietly in the background. I folded her note again, this time carefully, gently, and tucked it into my pocket. I needed to keep it close. A reminder, a spark, a promise. I thought the forged papers were the worst of it. I thought the note was the deepest pain she carried. But the next morning, when I returned to that cafe, I heard something behind the kitchen door. Something that froze my blood and told me her suffering had only just begun. And this time, I recorded everything. The next morning, the cold air bit straight through my coat as I walked toward the cafe. I didn't go in through the front this time. Old instincts told me not to. Instead, I followed the narrow alley behind the building, the one most people never bothered with. The pavement was still wet from the night's rain, and the scent of damp cardboard and sour milk clung to the air. I listened first. Always listen before you act. Behind the kitchen door, muffled voices floated through the cracks. Sharp, tense, ugly. I turned on my small recorder, an old device with scratches and tape residue from long-forgotten investigations. Then I leaned closer. At first I heard nothing but the hum of the fridge and the soft clatter of pans. Then a voice, her voice. The mother-in-law, cold and crisp as broken glass. "If you cry again, I swear I'll dock your pay." My breath caught. Then my daughter's voice, small, thin, like she'd been crying for hours. "I'm not crying, I'm just tired." "Don't lie to me," the mother-in-law snapped. "You should be grateful. We're letting you stay on the ownership papers at all." My heart hammered, grateful to stay on something she built. My grip tightened on the recorder. Then another voice joined in, Travis, my daughter's husband, my son-in-law. "Mom, go easier on her," he muttered. For a moment I felt relief. Maybe he was defending her. Maybe he was finally. Then he added, "She's sensitive. You have to handle her like a child." It hit me like a fist. A pause, then laughter. Both of them. My daughter didn't laugh. Her silence screamed louder than anything I'd heard. The mother-in-law said something so sharp it sliced right through the thin wooden door. "I told you from the start, we take over the cafe, make it profitable, and she works here for experience. She doesn't get control back, ever." My jaw locked so tight my teeth hurt. "And her father?" Travis asked quietly. That question froze me. The mother-in-law chuckled, a low, bitter, mocking sound. "Oh, that old man. He can barely walk straight. He's harmless. I could snap him like a twig." I don't remember deciding to breathe again. All I remember is the violent stillness that filled me. The stillness that happens right before something inside a man breaks and reforms sharper. Not angry, not wild, sharp. I let the recorder capture every word, every threat, every insult, every admission of taking the cafe, then something softer. My daughter, her voice shaking. "Please don't talk about my dad like that." "Then stop giving me reasons to," her mother-in-law shot back. "And get back to work. You still haven't finished the inventory." The sound of a slap echoed through the metal door. My heart stopped. But then a soft thud, like someone collapsing into a chair, and my daughter whispering, "Okay, I'll do better." "No, no, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong." I stepped back from the door, feeling something inside me snap like old wood under weight. I recorded 10 more minutes of their cruelty before slipping away unseen. As I walked home, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady, soaking through my coat and pooling at my feet. I didn't rush, I didn't stumble, I walked with purpose, because now I had proof. Now I had leverage. Now I had her words, and nothing is more damning than the truth spoken when someone thinks they're alone. When I reached my apartment, I played the recording again. My hands trembled, my chest tightened, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. She thinks I'm harmless. She thinks I'm weak. She thinks age means helpless. Let her think that. Let her underestimate every wrinkle, every slow breath, every limp I walk with. Let her believe she's won, because she has no idea old lions don't roar, they wait. But I wasn't prepared for what the cameras would show that night. Not just cruelty, but something darker, something illegal, something she couldn't talk her way out of. And once I saw it, there was no turning back. That evening, I called my nephew, Oliver. Smart kid, quick with computers. The kind of young man who can fix a phone with one hand while eating a sandwich with the other. He came over within the hour carrying a small black backpack full of gadgets. "Uncle," he said, lowering his voice the moment he saw my face, "who hurt you?" "Not me," I told him. "My daughter." He didn't ask more. He just nodded and got to work. We sat at my kitchen table, just like the old days when I'd teach him how to fix radios. Except this time, he was the teacher, and I was the student. He handed me a small device no bigger than a coin, a miniature camera, motion activated, he explained softly. "You put this anywhere and, well, people will show you who they really are." I placed 2 cameras in my coat pocket. One would go under the counter. one in the back office, not to catch them being mean. No, to catch them being themselves. The next morning, I walked into the cafe with an unassuming smile, the smile of an old man who pretends he doesn't hear well and doesn't see much. I bought a coffee, sat at the corner table, watched. When the mother-in-law snapped at a barista for pouring too slow, her face twisted in a way customers never saw. When the line built up, she shoved my daughter aside and told customers she was too inexperienced to trust. Every insult carved deeper lines into my daughter's face. When they finally went to the back office to argue again, I slipped the first camera under the counter, wedged behind a stack of unused trays. Later, when the office door slammed shut, I placed the second camera beneath a coat rack, angled perfectly toward the desk. My hands shook. Yes, age does that, but my aim didn't. That night, Oliver came back to help me view the footage. We sat in the dim glow of the laptop screen as the videos loaded. The first file opened. My daughter stood behind the counter, her posture small, her shoulders inward. She looked exhausted, too exhausted for someone her age. Then her mother-in-law walked in and opened the cash drawer. Not to count it, to take from it. She slid bills into her purse with a casualness that made me sick. Not $10, not 20, hundreds. Stuffed them in like it was her personal wallet. I leaned closer to the screen, gripping the edge of the table. She's stealing from her own daughter's business, Oliver muttered, anger rising in his voice. Your daughter is going to go bankrupt before she realizes what's happening. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The next file played. This one was worse. It showed my daughter scrubbing the floor again late at night after the cafe closed, alone except for the hum of appliances. Her knees were bruised. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. Her breath shaky. At one point she sat back, wiped her eyes and whispered, "I miss you, Mom." My throat tightened painfully. She cried silently for a minute, then forced herself to keep scrubbing, like someone who no longer believed she deserved rest. But the worst footage wasn't of her. It was the office camera. I watched the mother-in-law sit at the desk, smiling smugly as she counted stolen cash into neat stacks. Then Travis walked in. He asked how much they'd taken today. She told him. They both laughed together. No guilt, no hesitation. Just two people enjoying the spoils of someone else's labor. But then something twisted inside me. Because Travis leaned back in his chair and said, "Just make sure Delilah never finds out. She's too fragile. If she breaks down, her dad will get involved. And that old man, he used to be dangerous." My breath stopped. Used to be, used to be. The mother-in-law waved her hand dismissively. "He's old," she said. "He's weak. He's not a threat." Oliver paused the video. "Uncle," he said quietly. "Yes," he swallowed. "You want to ruin them, don't you?" I stared at the frozen frame, the smug grin on her face, Travis lounging like a man who believed he'd never face consequences. "Yes," I whispered, and my voice didn't tremble. "Yes, I do." We watched footage for 2 more hours, every minute worse than the last. By the time we were done, I felt hollow, drained, old in a way I hadn't before. But beneath the exhaustion, something else pulsed. A cold, quiet resolve. I closed the laptop and looked at the ceiling, exhaling slowly. "All right," I said. "Now we start." But justice doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with pressure, silent, sharp, and perfectly timed. And the pressure I was about to apply would change everything. Because the next morning, I filed a complaint that would make her world collapse. I woke early the next day, earlier than I had in years. The sky outside was still gray, and the cold morning air carried the smell of rain-soaked earth. I made a cup of black tea, sat at my small wooden table, and opened my old inspector's notebook. The same one I used for 3 decades. Except this time, I wasn't documenting a business. I was documenting a betrayal. I listed everything the cameras caught. Cash theft, inventory manipulation, fake receipts, unsafe food handling, employee abuse, forged ownership documents, coercion, and intimidation. My handwriting shook. But I kept writing until the page looked full enough to sink a ship. Then I logged into the inspection portal, the same one I helped design decades ago. Funny, life has a way of circling back. I filled out the complaint form with careful, deliberate detail. I attached the audio recording, the video stills, the timestamps. I wrote, "Anonymous tip, significant and dangerous violations. Immediate response recommended." I hovered over the submit button for a moment, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then, click. A simple sound. A small motion. But it set an avalanche in motion. By noon, the cafe was buzzing with the weekend crowd when two inspectors walked in, clipboards in hand, badges visible. I sat across the street on a park bench, pretending to read a newspaper while watching through the window. Customers stiffened. Baristas froze. My daughter glanced up suddenly, panic flashing across her face. The mother-in-law brushed past her with a fake smile plastered on her lips, greeting the inspectors with that sugary charm she always used. But charm doesn't fix rotting conditions. Charm doesn't fix stolen cash. Charm doesn't fix broken spirits. The inspectors went straight to the kitchen. 5 minutes in, I saw one of them snap on gloves, never a good sign. 10 minutes later, they were taking photos. 15 minutes later, they called the mother-in-law to the back and her smile cracked in half. My heart pounded, not from fear, not from excitement, from justice. Slow, sharp, cold. After 20 minutes, customers began whispering. After 30, they started leaving. After 40, the inspectors taped a temporary order on the refrigerator door, a violation notice. The mother-in-law came storming out, her face flushed, her hair a mess. She slammed the office door so hard the window rattled. I watched her melt down through the glass, her arms flailing, her lips contorting in silent screams. And my daughter, she just stood there, silent, eyes wide, almost in disbelief. The inspector handed her a copy of the violation report. She stared at the paper like she'd never seen her own handwriting before. Then, for the first time in weeks, her shoulders lifted. Not much, just an inch. But it was the first sign of life returning to her. An hour later, the inspectors left. The mother-in-law emerged looking like someone slapped her pride raw. She locked the doors, turned the signs, stomped around like a storm trapped inside four walls. I just watched, calm, still, patient. The old lion in me purred quietly. That night, as I prepared dinner, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it. One sentence. "You think you can scare me? We're not done." No name, but I didn't need one. I knew exactly who sent it. I placed the phone down slowly, took a deep breath, and smiled, the kind of smile only an old man makes when he knows the next move belongs to him. She thought the inspection was the end, but it was only the beginning. Because the letter she'd receive next week, the one with my daughter's name on it, would shatter every lie she built. The letter arrived on a Wednesday morning. I didn't deliver it myself. That would have made things personal too fast. No, I left that job to someone much more frightening than I'll ever be. A lawyer with a perfect memory and zero patience for liars. Her name was Mara Lorne. Sharp suit, sharper tongue. She used to work on corporate fraud before deciding she liked helping the little guy more. I had shown her everything. The videos, the forged papers, the audio recordings, the camera timestamps. She didn't blink once, didn't even gasp. She just said, "Let me handle her. People like this fold when real law enters the room." So that Wednesday morning, Mara delivered a bright white envelope embossed with her firm's logo. Inside were three things: a cease and desist for harassment and coercion, a demand for restitution of stolen funds, a notice of impending litigation for fraud, forgery, and emotional abuse, subtle as a hammer to the skull. I wasn't there when the mother-in-law opened it, but Delilah told me later. She went white, Dad, white, like she'd seen a ghost. If only she knew the ghost was me. But that wasn't the day things exploded. That happened 2 days later. The cafe was quieter than usual. Customers whispered about the inspection incident. Rumors were spreading. Trust was fading. The mother-in-law stormed into the cafe wearing a thick red coat like a general marching to war. She shoved the letter across the counter at my daughter. "Did you put her up to this?" she demanded. Delilah flinched. "Mom, I didn't hire anyone. Don't lie to me." The woman shrieked, slamming her fist on the counter so hard a stack of napkins toppled. Customers stared. My daughter shrank. I was sitting in the corner, sipping my tea slowly, deliberately, pretending to read the newspaper while pressing record on my pocket device. My daughter whispered, "I didn't do anything wrong." That set the woman off. "Wrong," she yelled. "You're lazy, ungrateful, useless. If it weren't for us, you'd have nothing." Delilah stepped back, heart pounding, hands shaking. And then the mother-in-law made a mistake. She grabbed my daughter's wrist. Hard, I stood up. I didn't shout, didn't slam anything, didn't make a scene. I just walked over and said in a voice so low it could have frozen lava, "Let her go." The whole cafe went silent. The woman turned toward me, eyes burning. "This is none of your business." "You made it my business," I said softly, "the moment you put your hands on my child." She released Delilah, too quickly, too guilty. A shaky customer filmed the entire thing. Good. Let witnesses speak when liars can't. Apartment unexpectedly. Red-eyed, disheveled, reeking of panic. He didn't even wait for me to invite him in. He pushed past me and collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I didn't know she took the money. I didn't know she hit her. I didn't know." "Stop lying," I said quietly, shutting the door. He froze. I walked to my desk drawer, took out a small USB drive and placed it on the coffee table in front of him. "You knew." My voice was the sound of old ice cracking. He looked down at the drive like it was a snake. "That's everything you didn't know," I said. "Every word you said, every dollar you let her take." Travis broke, completely. Not brave, not noble, no confession, just a pathetic collapse. "She made me choose," he sobbed. "She said she'd cut me off if I didn't help her. I thought Delilah would understand." "She did," I said. "Until she didn't," he cried harder. "Weakness has a specific smell, regret, sweat, fear. I'd smelled it many times in my career." "I'm sorry," he choked. "I want to fix this." "You can't fix it," I whispered. "But you can help us end it." His breath hitched. "How?" I leaned forward. "By telling the truth." He hesitated. "Cowards always do." But eventually he nodded. That was all I needed, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. The morning after Travis's breakdown, the mother-in-law disappeared. No note, no call, no apology, just gone, along with every dollar from the register the night before. My daughter arrived at the cafe to find the safe empty, drawers open, receipts missing, bank bags stolen, everything wiped clean. I stared at the mess, feeling the old familiar throb of fury swell in my chest. She ran. She ran because she knew the law was closing in. She ran because she knew she was cornered. She ran because she knew I was coming. I thought losing the money was the worst part. But when the police traced her last transaction, and I followed that trail to a rundown motel 3 states away, I realized the real confrontation hadn't even begun. And this time I wouldn't be alone. The detectives told me not to travel. "Let the authorities handle it," they said. "She's out of state now," they said. "It's complicated," they said, "but complicated doesn't stop a father." 3 hours later, I was in a rental car with one working heater vent, driving west on the interstate with a thermos of black coffee and joints stiffer than cold iron rods. Fletcher, my son, insisted on coming. He sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, jaw tight, anger simmering. She stole from Dell, he muttered. She made her cry, she made her hide from us. Yes, I said quietly. And we're going to fix it, he added. Yes, I repeated. The road stretched long and empty, lined with bare trees and fading billboards. The sky was a dull winter gray. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. When you're a father, you don't need words to communicate with your children. Silence carries everything. By nightfall, we reached the motel, a peeling yellow building with flickering neon lights reading VAC CY. Fletcher parked across the street. I took a deep breath and stepped out, my knees complaining loudly. The cold desert air slapped my face. Then I saw her, sitting on the cracked sidewalk outside room 14, smoking nervously, glancing around like a hunted animal. When her eyes landed on me, her cigarette slipped from her fingers. She stood up. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Finishing what you started," I said, walking forward steadily. She backed up, nearly stumbling over the uneven concrete. "You're crazy," she spat. "You have no authority." "You're just an old man," I offered, her mouth twisted. "Yes." "Good," I said softly. "Then you have nothing to fear unless you did something wrong." Her breath hitched. Her eyes darted to the parking lot. She was looking for an escape. "No more running," I said. She tried anyway. She shoved past me and sprinted toward the back of the building, but Fletcher stepped out from behind a pillar and blocked her path. He didn't touch her, didn't speak, just stood there. She froze. For the first time, she looked small. Not powerful, not in control, just small. The police arrived moments later, 2 officers from the county who'd been tracking her stolen card activity. She screamed when they cuffed her. She blamed everyone, the system, my daughter, the inspectors, the judge she hadn't met yet. She never blamed herself. People like her never do. As she was led into the patrol car, she turned toward me, eyes raging. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "No," I said. "I think my daughter finally will." The officers shut the door. Silence followed, cold, still, long. I let out a slow breath I'd been holding for days. Fletcher placed a hand on my shoulder. "Dad," he murmured, "it's over." But as we drove back through the night, watching the desert stretch into darkness, I realized something. Winning doesn't bring peace. It just ends the battle. And the rebuilding, the healing, that was still ahead. For all of us. Catching her was one thing. Facing the fallout she left behind was another beast entirely. Because when the dust settled, my daughter had to make a decision, one that would change her entire future. And she wasn't the only one who needed to confess something. The sentencing happened 3 months later. The courtroom smelled of old carpet, lemon cleaner, and heavy consequences. My daughter sat beside me, hands clasped tightly, her wedding ring absent for the first time since the ceremony. Travis sat on the opposite bench, head bowed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. When the judge read out the charges, theft, fraud, forgery, coercion, the mother-in-law didn't flinch. She just looked bored. People like her don't feel guilt, just inconvenience. She was given 18 months, mandatory restitution, community service. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. She turned around, scanned the room, and locked eyes with me. For a moment, I saw something flicker there. Not remorse, not fear, just realization. That I wasn't the weak old man she thought I was. I nodded once, a quiet, final gesture. She looked away. After the hearing, we walked outside into the crisp afternoon air. My daughter leaned her head on my shoulder. "Dad, thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "I never could," I murmured. "You're my girl." But then she surprised me. "I want a divorce," she said softly. I didn't celebrate, didn't smile. I just squeezed her hand. "Good," I said. "You deserve a life that doesn't shrink you." She closed her eyes, letting the wind brush through her hair. Then she asked, "How did you stay so calm through all this? How did you know what to do?" And here is the part I had kept from her. the truth I carried for 30 years. Sweetheart, I said slowly, there was a time when I didn't protect the people I loved, not the way they needed. She turned toward me, confused. When your mother got sick, I continued, voice soft and cracking, I trusted the wrong people. I believed lies. I ignored signs. And by the time I fought back, it was too late. Her eyes widened. Dad, I shook my head. That regret lived in me, every day, every breath. A tear slid down her cheek. So when I saw you on that floor, I whispered, I swore I'd never fail my family again. She hugged me then tight, desperate, forgiving. I didn't deserve forgiveness, but she gave it anyway. 6 months passed. The cafe reopened under her name, her real name, her rightful name, printed proudly on a wooden sign above the entrance. The smell of fresh pastries filled the air every morning. Customers returned. New ones came. Friends volunteered. Community grew. She was happy again, stronger, standing tall. Sometimes I'd sit by the window with a warm cup of tea, watching her laugh with customers, sunlight catching in her hair like it used to when she was small. Funny how life circles back. One evening she sat across from me at the closing table. The chairs creaked softly. The cafe hummed with distant dishwashing. Dad, she said gently, what did all of this teach you? I smiled, a small, worn, old man smile. That protection isn't loud, I told her. It isn't shouting or fighting or breaking things. She leaned closer. It's quiet, I said, patient, steady. And sometimes it's ruthless when it needs to be. She nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Then I added the one truth I learned the hard way. When life steals from your child, you don't stay silent. She swallowed, eyes soft. I placed my hand over hers. Because silence is how thieves grow bold. And with that, the story closed the way it began, a father protecting his daughter, not with fists, not with fury, but with truth and love, and the strength of a man who refuses to let darkness take what he cherishes most. A father's love doesn't age, it sharpens. If my story reached your heart, don't leave without subscribing. More real stories, more lessons, more truth. I'll be here to tell them.